And welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. I am extremely fortunate, extremely excited, extremely happy to have Mr. Ronnie Reese back on here with me again today. Ronnie is, man, he's one of our team members. He has done an amazing job. He's been with the company, we've been with the Simple team as long as I have. So it's kind of like we came in together, got to see this thing grow together and stuff. So always a pleasure to have you on here, Ronnie. How's it going, man?
Happy to be here. It's an honor, 2021. All right, let's just see what what this year holds.
Awesome. And I know, so last time we did, the other episode we did with you and I were on here and we kind of talked about how to use Deal Machine, how to use Prop Stream. If you're using any one of those things, definitely use the code SIMPLE. You get some free credits, things like that, be able to help you out. So we talked about basically for the people that maybe they aren't in the boat that so that's our everyday. Like we're finding sellers, we're getting leads into us, we're finding people that want to sell their houses. That's what we do. That's the lifeblood of our business. But there are a lot of investors out there investing in Indianapolis that are doing it kind of on their own or starting off, or hey, I have a rental property, or I have 3 rental properties on this street. There's this other property. It looks a little distressed. I don't know what's going on with it. I think it's vacant. How do I find the owners? That's why I use the prop stream. That's why I use Deal Machine. Use some of those avenues to be able to get in contact, do some skip tracing, get in contact, send some mailers, whatever it may be to find those sellers. What we want to do now, I had a lot of feedback, positive feedback from that. So great job on that episode, Ronnie. But a lot of positive feedback and a lot of questions on like, okay, what do I do next? How do I make that first call? How do I make that, kind of, what do I say? How do I approach them? That kind of thing. So I thought it'd be great to do another episode, Ronnie, with you on that and stuff. And I guess it would just start off by people saying, when people are like, hey, how do I make that first phone call, or what do I say to those sellers? The first thing I'd say is like, I would write out what you want to say first and kind of have a script, even if it's just like a one-time thing that you're doing or a conversation. Like figure out, think about it, practice it before you do it, because it is a weird conversation. It's not like just I'm calling Ronnie up and being like, hey, did you watch that Buckeye Alabama game? Like, okay, you guys won. Like it's not that phone call. It's a really awkward phone call and stuff. So when it comes to that of like writing down a script and practicing it, how important is that, Ronnie?
It is very important because one of the things that you always have to ask yourself and you always think about is, okay, how am I feeling when I'm getting ready to make this first phone call? It is very common for you to be nervous and anxious and kind of jitterbuggy, and that's fine. But what you want to make sure is that you have at least a bare bones script to kind of help you get home. And the first thing is, how am I feeling? Okay. And then being able to compensate for how you're feeling. So if you have a script or something to kind of help you, that's kind of your security blanket to kind of help you give a couple of launching pad words or phrases to kind of get that conversation going. So obviously you got your introduction, your opening, your first things that you're saying when you get it on the phone, introducing yourself, figuring out, okay, well, who am I marketing myself to be? The neighbor? Am I marketing myself to be the big investor? Am I marketing myself to be the friend? And figuring out what that phraseology is. And, I feel like it's best when you're coming off as a person as opposed as an entity. So, hey, Don, this is Ronnie. I'm just checking in with you. I see you got a property here, on 123 Main Street. Just wanted to know, would you happen to be interested in a cash offers? I mean, something very simple, or even dialing back, what's going on with that property? Asking that open-ended question. I'm telling you, having those what questions at the beginning, those are launching pads for conversation. So that's what I would just strongly encourage.
I think that's great advice. So I want to talk about 2 things there with what you said. Number one is I love the fact that you said that, like, what mindset are you in? If you just finished like your day job and like you're like driving home and like you're probably not in the right mind space to like make that call. Like you probably need to be sitting down. Me, whenever I'm making these calls, I'm in a space where I can walk around. I have to be walking around. I have to be active as I do it. Place where I can write down notes and things like that. So are you in the right mindset? Did you just have a stressful conversation with your kid about something? Like, don't make a call to a seller after that. Like you want to be that happy, that outgoing person, somebody that they like, somebody friendly, things like that. I think it goes a long way. So what mindset are you in as you make that call is important. And just on that, you said of like, kind of being more of like that personal person or that friend versus a big entity of how do you want to present yourself? My approach, I really like to be like kind of the confused person. Like, what's going on? Like, I'm like, hey, my name is Brian. I'm trying to find the owner of this property at 123 Main Street. Is that you? Do you know where it is? Like, that kind of thing. I think people tend to, number one, they like to help people that seem like they're lost or that, kind of are confused and things like that. You seem less, just more approachable, like kind of less confrontational that way. But then also too, they just like, people will correct you. Like, you're not the owner, are you? Yeah, I am. Like that. They're going to correct you. They're going to say things like that. So that's kind of my approach to it, is like, I'm kind of acting like I'm a little bit confused, trying to figure out what's going on at first. And then once I get the confirmation, they're like, okay, now I can like let my personality come out a little bit. Like, I can be friendly. I can be like, oh, awesome. Yeah, great. I've been trying to find you guys forever. Like, what's going on? Are you okay? Are you having a good day? And then all of a sudden I'm asking you a couple of these questions, and we're into a conversation. And then hopefully obviously you're going to get sometimes too, just like, what are you doing? Why are you calling me? Like, F off, like that kind of, you're going to get some of that. But
Right.
the way I kind of approach that, it leads, I have a lot less of those conversations, I think. So good stuff. So number one, just be in the right mindset, be prepared, have a script. Don't be afraid to practice it on your, on your wife or husband or mom or sister or whoever. Practice it on somebody. Like, make sure you have that conversation. Kind of, it's a little awkward. It's a little weird. Go through it first. If you don't get them, if you leave a voicemail, be ready to be prepared for leaving a voicemail. What's I going to say? Follow it up with a text message. That's okay too. Like, do that kind of stuff. Try to get them to call back to you and that kind of thing. So once you are ready for that, you're in the right mindset, you have kind of a script, you've practiced that first call. When you make that first call, then I guess, Ronnie, what are, and we can kind of get into maybe the good, the bad, and this is a pretty open-ended question, but what are some things that maybe you can expect, or that, these people that are maybe making this call for the first time or trying to find some of these sellers and they're doing these, what are some things that they can expect on the other side of that phone call?
Expect this word to be common, but also one of the best words you're going to hear is no.
Yeah.
Expect a lot of no's. But that's okay, because again, you have to remember, when you're making these phone calls, you're doing this prospecting, you're looking for a person. That's what you're looking for. Not a property. You're looking for a person that happens to have a problem that is then tied to a property. So as you're looking for that, do you happen to own this house? No, I don't own this house. Okay, great. Now I know I can mark this one off the list. I can categorize it, move on to the next person. So now, you found a person. Yes, I am the person. Is someone living there? No, no one's living there. But now we have that launching pad to be able to, again, start getting more context exactly what's going on. So, so you're going to get a lot of no's. Some of the no's are going to be very aggressive. Some of the no's are going to be very political. You're going to get some really random stuff, but you're also going to run into some situations where people are really in need, and you really are going to want to help them. And those are the people that we're looking for. I tell this story. This may be the first time Brian is hearing this, but we just got a property under contract a little in the neighborhood north of Indianapolis. And as I was out there talking with the seller, he began to tell me there were some things going on in his family, and that a family member has just been stricken with what is to believe terminal cancer. And, I had to not be so emotionally drunk and caught up in the situation to actually still be able to listen, reflect what's going on, show that empathy, because, he's not just selling the house, but he's selling memories of when his child was healthy, and now his child isn't healthy. And so, that's a lot to take on, and him being a very young person. But, those are some things that you can expect. You're going to get no's. You're going to get some yeses, but you're also going to get some motivated sellers with some very emotional situations. And that's why it's important to always go back to the first thing that we talked about, is trying to figure out, how am I feeling? Because you have to be ready to be able to catch whatever comes down that chute, and you just never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. No, really good stuff, Ronnie. I really appreciate that. And I think there's a couple things to unpack there. So number one, when you're talking about getting a lot of no's and things, I actually prefer that.
Right.
So when you're having those conversations, when you're talking to people, yes is a confirmation. So when people say yes, they're confirming something, but you're putting people in a situation where they're a little unsure. They're not kind of sure. They don't know who you really are. They don't know much about you. So when you're asking questions that you're kind of anticipating a yes, or you're wanting a yes for, they're confirming that. It seems it's not that it's really confrontational. That's the wrong word for it. But just that, like, they're able to, you don't necessarily want to throw out questions that they have to say yes to, because you don't necessarily need that confirmation. That's asking a little bit too much from them in this kind of first couple conversations. So I like to generally ask questions that turn it around. So instead of asking questions that I would generally get a yes for, ask questions that I can get a no for. So, of just like, just by, like we said too, of like, hey, you wouldn't be the owner of this property, would you? They're going to correct you. They're going to say yes or no, things like that. But asking kind of those questions that maybe you would get a no for, kind of turning it around that way is really good. Also, when you talk about that, and I actually didn't even put that in my notes, and I'm really glad you brought this up, of like, when you're making those phone calls, you need to be prepared for anything on that other end. You never know what it could be. It could be somebody that, attacks you verbally, in a negative way. You can also be dealing with something that's something super heavy emotionally on that other side. And I think that's one of the things that through all the training, sales trainings and things I've done, a lot of people don't necessarily talk about that a lot, but that's one of the things that you need to be prepared for, because like you said, you're looking for a person, you're looking for a situation. And generally a lot of that time it's a distress of some kind on the other end. Whether it's the person's in distress, the house is in distress, there's some kind of distress in that situation. So what is the emotion that's coming from behind that? And can you deal with that? Can you talk through that? Can you empathize with that person a little bit, not in a superficial way either, of like actually like, hey, listening to them and figuring out what's going on. It's one of the things that I appreciate about this business is that, yes, we buy and sell houses. That's what we do, but we get to help people too. There's a lot of times that we're put in a situation, and if you're, listening to this podcast and you're like, hey, this is where I am. I want to try to find this property. I want to try to find the seller so I can buy this property. There's going to be a chance that person that you reach out to try to buy their property, you're going to help them out of some kind of a situation. People that I've sat across from at the closing table receive thank you notes from the next week or something like that, where it's like, thank you so much for buying my house. Thank you so much for getting me out of this situation. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know where else to turn. I just didn't have a lot of trust in people that I tried to sell to in the past, or I didn't know what to do. And they thank you for it. So it's one of the kind of those things of like, there's a heavy emotion that's you deal with when you talk to sellers and work with sellers, but there's also kind of that part of like, man, I was able to help them. I was able to get them out of that situation, and we're good. And then also you get another rental property or another property to flip out of it, which is kind of icing on the top as well. So, Ryan, let's kind of switch gears a little bit. We can kind of talk about like some little things that they can expect and things, but let's talk about maybe some of the objections that they're going to hear. So you maybe get into the phone call a little bit of, you figure out like, okay, maybe they're the owner, maybe they're interested in selling the property or any of that stuff. But what are some things that come up that, some of those common objections that people will say to you or even asking you within that first minute of the conversation?
How much you offering for my house? What are you offering? That's always one of the bigger objection is, price, and how far and how close we are to that. Another one that has to be considered is, who's the real decision maker? You know what I'm saying? Because, you got good cop, bad cop going on. Maybe there's a spouse that wants to sell, but then the other spouse doesn't, so you kind of have this other party that, you got to kind of try to get to the table. So, that's an objection that you're going to get. Rightfully so. With this objection is, I don't want anyone doing walkthroughs because of COVID.
Yep.
So, having to put different things or systems in place for you to be able to at least get eyes on the property, that's going to be important, especially if the person is older. So you have to kind of figure out, be creative about, what type of objection, how you're going to come around that objection as well. And also with that as well, maybe there's, a technological, hurdle that you have to climb, because the person is also older, so they don't have DocuSign emails or, different things like that. So you kind of have to be ready for that as well. So those are some of the, objections that are coming to mind right now that I've been dealing with in the last week. These are fresh objections.
So let's talk through some of those answers of how you might handle some of those situations. So let's go back to that one of, the common one of just where it's like, well, how much are you going to offer the house? So a lot of times these people are getting a ton of postcards, they're getting texts, they're getting calls from a ton of other people. And they're just like, right away, they're just like, hey, well, okay, well, how much do you want to offer my house? So how are you going to handle that? Like, you don't know anything about it. You don't, you maybe have done a little bit of research on the back. You've been in the area. You might have some, some rentals in the area, something like that. But when they ask that question, Ronnie, how are you going to handle that objection?
Look, I understand. I need to get more context of what's going on in the house before I can give you the best offer. And then I'm asking, are you okay? Are you able to help me, get a little more context? I don't want to offend you, but I want to make sure that I give you my best. And so that usually kind of puts them on, the defensive, and they understand again because you're acting kind of like that slow lost puppy. But the other thing you can do too, depending on the personality type, is kind of move the goalposts. Like, I understand what's happening, but do you know what's going on in your area? Then allowing the seller to then give you context of what they really know of what's going on in the area, and then walking it back and saying, okay, well, is that the type of price that you're expecting? And then getting into the context of what's going on with the home. So that's what I do. Is I kind of try to move the goalposts
Yeah.
to get more context.
Yeah. And one of the things I really like to do too is letting them know, like, if that's what they're really after, if like, hey, what's an offer is, like, there's two things that I basically want to make them aware of is that that my goal is to get them an offer as soon as possible. That's what I'm working towards. And that I need to get some more context before I'm actually able to give them that offer as soon as possible. And the second thing is that, like, I'm not going to give them that offer until they're ready to accept an offer. So are they actually ready? If I gave them an offer that they wanted, are they actually ready to accept it right then and there? So, and that kind of puts the onus on them a little bit. So sometimes I'm not going to give them, more ammunition on like giving them an offer so they can go take it to somebody else. I want to say, if I gave you an offer, if I gave you an offer that you wanted to, or, is in your range, would you be able to accept it today? The answer is no. I'm not going to give them an offer yet. I need more information anyway, and we'll go from there. So there's a couple things to consider. How about the one about like where they, with COVID going on right now? I mean, it's a big thing, and a lot of people are not going to want people walking through their property, taking pictures, that kind of thing, or even meeting them in person to talk and do walkthroughs and stuff like that. So, what are some things that somebody can do if they're coming up with that? Of basically like, hey, no, I'm sorry, like I would love to give you more information, but with COVID, I'm not allowing somebody to walk through my property. So, Ronnie, how are you handling that?
Yep. So I'm actually dealing with that now. There's a lady in a place a little north of Indianapolis. She's lost her mother and maybe even her father-in-law. To COVID. And she's like, I'm just not doing it. I've been able to talk with some family members, that are a little more technologically savvy, to be able to give me pictures and context of what's going on and FaceTime me, so we can kind of work and walk through that. So that's what I've been able to do there. I would always try to leverage, other relationships, and then also to allow them some self-efficacy. You want to sell, you're motivated to sell, help me out, help me problem solve. So that's been one of the things that's been really key and helpful. Depending on the seller that you're dealing with, maybe they're okay. You feel like this is a good deal, things make sense. You're able to give them, a $20 gift card, allow them to step outside. You come in with your hazmat suit. You're able to kind of do the walkthrough, whatever it is. I mean, so maybe some type of compensation that works there. But those are the things that I would do. Or either if you're not able to get a walkthrough, just let them know, like, look, well, conservatively, this is what I'm going to have to be because I can't see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's one of those things too. Yeah. Are they able to take pictures anyway? Can a family member take pictures anyway? Offering, hey, if I give your niece, a $50 gift card to Amazon, a $20 gift card to Amazon, something like that, like, would they be able to go through and take pictures for me? Would they be able to FaceTime me as they walk through the property? Those kind of things. I was actually surprised. And you did a good job of this, of how many people, didn't want to like meet you in person and stuff like that, but they would maybe leave and like for an hour and like let you walk through the house, like, or maybe they say in the backyard. I was actually surprised by that, but that actually worked for us a couple of times. I'm just like, hey, if I stop by, like, and you go in the backyard, like I'll do a quick walkthrough and then we can jump back on the phone and talk about the property and stuff just so I can see it. So, I mean, that's another option right there is all. I say never underestimate the value of a $20 gift card or, up to $50 gift card and stuff like that. Though that can go a long way when it comes to getting information and getting walkthroughs and stuff. So how about this one? This is an objection that I think we hear a lot of times too of, hey, I own the property. It's occupied by tenants. I don't want the tenants to know that I'm selling though.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, how do I get a walkthrough? How do we arrange this? How do we do this? And things like that. With that, and I'll let you kind of talk about how you handle this. I'm one of those people like right away, be like, hey, sorry. I'm all about transparency. I like to let everybody know what's going on. If you're serious about buying this property or me buying this property, like, we're going to need to talk to your tenants before it happens, or I'm going to reflect that in the offer that I can give you. And if that's the case, sometimes relationships are so damaged that they will accept a super low offer without ever talking to the tenant. And we've done that before, but really it's kind of going back to a lot of times when you're talking to motivated sellers, what you're really doing is trying to figure out what that level of distress is. In this situation is what happened within that relationship with the tenant that it's so damaged that you don't want to have that conversation, or what happened within that. And really, like, I would say like almost 75% of the time it just comes back to like, oh, well, they're not really paying. Well, that's okay. Right. Or there's something where it's something on the landlord where they need something fixed and I haven't fixed it. Okay. That's fine. That's why I want to buy it, because I can add value to it. That's why I can, put some more, money. I can put money into the property. I can, work with the tenants, or I can get the tenants out there and find somewhere else for them to live and stuff. Let me start that conversation for you. Let me help it out. Let me be the mediator. If not, at least set me up as a contractor that I can walk through, or an inspector that I can walk through and check out the property on my own and stuff. And like, hey, I can have that conversation. I can be discreet about it, but I'm still going to need to see the property. I'm still going to need to talk to the tenant in some way just to see what the situation is. I know somebody that's like buying properties and working with, tenants that are in properties in all kinds of situations. I at least need to get some context around what's going on with this tenant. Why is the situation the way it is? So believe it or not, landlords don't usually, or buy and hold investors don't usually sell their properties when they're profitable and the tenants are fantastic and the property is fantastic. There's an issue. That's why I want to buy it. So figuring out what that is. So Ronnie, how do you kind of handle that, or any things to input on that, of just like how to work with tenants, how to work with landlords, property managers, stuff like that when they don't want to know what's going on?
No, you hit it right on the head, because what I do, and my first question is, well, what's going on that's an issue? I dig deeper into that pain to figure out what is really going on. You hit it right on the head there. And then from there, I position myself. I said, well, look, you want transparency and openness with us. I said, as someone who's going to be taking on this, I said, it makes it an easier transition if, like you said, is everyone's on the same page. I want you to like me. I also want the tenants to like me, so that's kind of what's going on. And if they aren't able to do that, like you said, well, if I can't do that, I'll be a contractor just so I can get context, but also understand it's going to have to reflect, because now I don't know all of what's going on, but also too, doing that walkthrough, maybe I'm able to talk to the tenant to get a little more context, so what's going on. But that's what I'm trying to let the seller know, like, hey, look, everyone's on the same page. I want a good experience. You want a good experience. These people's lives are at stake and what's going on. They need time to kind of adjust to what's happening too. Yeah. Isn't that fair? And then go from there.
Yeah. So, all right. One of the last things I want to kind of talk about and go over is just that, like, how important follow-up is too. So, we realize this within our business all the time, working with other wholesalers, working with people, like kind of coaching them through this a lot of times too, of like, oh, well, I burned through my list of leads and, I have some different follow-up systems and things like that. Like, okay, are you actually following up? Are you actually, going through the follow-up sequences? So my recommendation to everybody out there is, like, a lot of times with our deals, we don't get the deal within that first one or two conversations. Checking in with them, putting them on in a follow-up sequence of like, okay, I'm going to follow up them every week for 3 weeks, and then every month for 3 months, and then, every 3 months, and things like that, just to see what happened. One of the things I like to, just an easy thing to do is, go on Redfin and kind of like tag that property. And then anytime something happens within that property, maybe it's sold, maybe it goes pending, something happens with that property, you get pinged and it tells you what happened with it. So doing things like that you can follow up and just check in and stuff like that. One of my favorite follow-up questions is like when that person says, oh no, we have other people interested and stuff like that. I love giving them a call like a week later and be like, hey, congratulations on getting your property sold. Oh, we didn't get our property sold. Oh, you didn't? I thought you had some other offers. I thought you had people that were interested in the property. Oh, well, they didn't, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, I am a cash buyer. I'm ready to buy your property tomorrow. Let's talk about this. Let's see what's going on. So Ronnie, I know we talk about this all the time, and I feel like, this gets brought up in our weekly trainings, monthly trainings all the time of like, how are we following up? I just had this conversation with Ronnie, you have too many calls in your follow-up system. Like, what's going on, man? So how important is that follow-up and what you're doing with that to just reconnect with those sellers and just to figure out what their situation is and finding out what's going on with their properties?
It is priceless. I can't tell you how many deals I've gotten just from following up, from people that have accepted higher offers, or what I would even say that's a better offer too. But that deal is in the follow-up. There's a property that's not too far from Lawrence. Guy had an offer. It was, $6,000, $7,000 more. I said, you know what? That sounds like a good offer. If something happens, let me know. I double checked when the closing date was supposed to be. I called him a week before the closing date. He said, man, I ain't heard nothing. I said, it just got silent. He said, yeah, I haven't heard anything. Checked on the day of closing. He's like, they disappeared. I can't find their website anymore. I don't know what happened. And so, we were able to get that deal, from what? Follow up. So, once if somebody does, get accepted offer, that's okay. Sometimes deal falls through and sometimes they actually do close. And that's good too. So you call them just to congratulate them. But, follow up is priceless. So if you don't have a follow up system, because maybe you don't have a CRM that, auto tasks and things like that, put it in your Google or Apple calendar. Like, it can be a very simple reminder. Text Miss Dolores Smith at 11:30, 2 weeks from today, to see what's going on. She should have closed last Friday. Like, that's simple. Use your calendar.
Yeah. So, last little thing here is before we get out of here, I put it out there to everybody too, of like, if you're in that situation. I just had this conversation with a, with a investor, and they're in a situation where they have a property, they know exactly where it is. They've already invested in this area and stuff before. They sent me the address, like, hey, Brian, can you skip trace this for me and give me a number? I was like, yeah, no problem. Did that, gave them a couple numbers. I don't know, if any of them worked or not or anything like that. Hopefully, I think they said one or two of them did and stuff. But anyway, they were in a situation like, I can't get in contact with them. I can't, they won't answer the phone. They won't talk to me, blah, blah, blah. What happens in that situation? Work with somebody that does it every day. So reach out to us, reach out with some other people that you work with that do this each and every day. And just like, for example, what I told him was like, hey, listen, what we'll do is I can just put it within our system. One of our guys is going to tackle, one of our guys is going to go after it like they do with our usual stuff. We have your name tagged in it. If we end up buying, just let me know what price point you need it at. We'll get it at that price point or under, and we'll talk about it from there. So you're tagged in it. I'm not going to steal your lead. I'm not going to do anything like that. So work with some people that you trust, or maybe that can help you out with it, that do it each and every day. Because like we just talked about, Ronnie has a follow-up system. He's going to be following up with them, every so often for the next year and a half. That's our follow-up system. So maybe we can get that lead for you and we can help you out anyway. But there's a lot of great people here in Indianapolis that can do that for you as well. Anything like that. So Ronnie, as I get you out of here, man, really appreciate all your insights, all the value, the content that you brought today. Is there anything else that you just want to mention or talk about before we get you out of here?
Yes, very simple, but enjoy this journey. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to have a lot of bumps and bruises, but remember why you're doing this. You're doing this to create cash flow, to create a legacy for yourself, but then also to the situation. So make sure that you enjoy this. And if you find yourself not enjoying it, maybe we need to do something else.
Awesome stuff. If you have any questions for us at all, if you need help with anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us. My name is Brian Snyder. This is Ronnie Reese. You can reach out to either one of us on social media or at brian@simplewholesaling.com or ronnie@simplewholesaling.com. We are more than happy to help you out with anything. And feel free to reach out to us and just let us know, hey, what are some episodes that you want us to do in the future? What's some stuff that you need contact or some content on? This was one of those ideas. We had some people that reached out to us after some of the other episodes that we did and said, hey, how do you do this? How do you have that conversation? That's how this came about. So if you have any other suggestions, let us know. With that, we'll get you out of here. Have a wonderful day, and we will have you guys next time on the Indy Investor Pod. Take care.